Lady, lady Cotton, king of the wild.
Born on a mountaintop in Tennessee, Venus stayed in the land of the free. Raised in the woods, so he knew every tree. Killed him a bar when he was only 3. Lady Cotton, king of the wild.
Good evening and welcome to our notes tonight on the Lone Star Republic. Our inquiry question for the night is, how does the Alamo illustrate the difficult choices during the period of Manifest Destiny? So, why Texas? Why did people want Texas? What was there about Texas that caused conflict and this anxiety and separation? So the Mexican government supported Americans moving into Texas because there wasn't a lot of Mexicans living in this area at the time. So they figured if the Americans wanted to come in, set up the land, and follow the rules and laws of Mexico, they were fine with that. Stephen Austin was granted land from Mexico, and by 1830, there were over 20,000 Americans living in Mexico. So over the years, Texas was a lot more like America than it was like Mexico, and the people had closer ties with the American government and the American way of life than the Mexican government and way of life. What was there about Texas that was so awesome for these Americans to be moving? Awesome land, great land to roam cattle, grow cattle, great for cotton, and we're in that middle of the cotton boom in the cotton kingdom throughout the South, and the more land they can get to grow this cotton on, the more value and more money they can make. So these Americans are seeing this wild frontier that can be tamed and turned into a profit. So, fight for independence. How did Texas become independent from Mexico? So, if we look at it, it was over time. Like I said, more Americans were moving in. And as these Americans were setting up their way of life in Texas, they didn't have this connection with the Mexican government. However, they did not want direct ties with the United States either. They wanted to be their own country. So over time, and in 1835, we start to see these conflicts coming up as the Mexican government is starting to try to enforce their laws and their way of life into Texas and into the people living there. So time goes on, and it gets to the point where the Texans say, we want to be our own country. We're going to separate, we're going to declare independence from Mexico. In this time, we start to see some skirmishes and fighting build up. We get to the point of the Alamo, which we'll talk about more in a little bit, where the Texans are way outnumbered and they're all killed in this battle. However, this ignited a passion within the Texans that they're not going to take in. They're going to stand up and fight for their independence. Over a couple months span in 1836, from the time of the end of the Battle of the Alamo in early March to the middle of April, things are building. And on April 21st, Sam Houston decides to attack the Mexicans. It was in this battle where they were able to catch them off guard, unprepared, and within 18 minutes, the Texan military was able to kill 630 Mexicans and capture over 700 more. And in that process, they captured Santa Anna, who was the president of Texas and the leader of the military driving this force into Texas. So let's take a step back to the Alamo. It's really the Alamo that shows the passion and the way, the thought of those living in Texas. So this is a picture of inside the Alamo, and the Alamo was this old fort. It was run down in modern-day San Antonio, and it was at this place where around 200 Americans and Texans took a stand against the Mexican military. They were outnumbered largely. The Mexicans had a couple thousand soldiers to the around 200 Texans inside the Alamo. And they were crying for help, asking Americans to send people, asking the government of Texas to send more people. But nobody was coming. Very few new people were coming to support. No new ammunition, no new guns. So it was a tough stand. The leader inside the Alamo was a guy named William Barrett Travis. He says, "Fellow citizens and compatriots, I am besieged by 1,000 or more of our Mexicans under Santa Anna. I have sustained a continual bombardment and cannonade for 24 hours and have not lost a man. The enemy has demanded a surrender. Otherwise, the garrison are to be put to the sword if the fort is taken. I have answered the demand with a cannon shot, and our flag still waves proudly from the walls. I shall never surrender or retreat. I am determined to sustain myself as long as possible and die like a soldier who never forgets what is due to his honor and that of his country. Victory or death, William Barrett Travis." So in this, the guys of the Alamo, the people fighting in the Alamo, they pledged to each other their lives. They are going to fight and either win or they're going to die. They're not going to surrender. And in the end, that's what happens. Every single male that's fighting inside the Alamo is killed or executed once captured. The Mexican military did not take prisoners. The handful that were alive, once the Mexicans were able to overpower the fort, were few. One of the most famous people inside the Alamo was a guy named Davy Crockett. He was a frontiersman from Tennessee. He knew the wilderness. He wanted an adventure. He wanted to come and help this cause. Prior to coming to the Alamo, he was a politician. He was, I believe, in for 2 terms, and then once he was defeated, he was like, "Forget you, I'm going to Texas and I'm going to help them support this new way of life," which directly reflected the attitudes of the American Revolution of, we want this freedom, we want this independence. We don't want any type of government telling us how to live our lives. Crockett had become famous in the early 1800s with his skills during the Indian Wars. He was able to defeat the Indians that were considered enemy, but he was also able to make a lot of allies with the Native Americans also. So the Republic of Texas is set up. The Alamo becomes a rallying cry as we go back to that independence of, remember the Alamo, remember these 200 people that died, remember how they fought. Let's not let them down, and let's keep going. Shortly after the Alamo, like I said, about a month and a half, the Republic of Texas becomes an independent country. This is in 1836. The U.S. is divided over, should they annex Texas? So as you look on this map, all the yellow and all the yellow striped areas all become the Republic of Texas. The rest of the green stay part of Mexico. Mexico didn't accept the signed treaty, and they kept trying to say, no, this is our land, no, this is our land. However, Texas becomes bankrupt quickly, and within 9 years, 1845, the United States decides to annex Texas as a territory of the country. So the issue, though, when Texas comes in is slavery. Should Texas be allowed to have slaves? If you remember earlier, I said Texas is a great land for growing cotton, and most of the time when you grow cotton, at this point, there was slavery involved. So lots of hard choices for both the people fighting in Texas, trying to separate from Mexico, and the United States do we want them to be a part of our country? But then you have that idea of manifest destiny. It's our destiny. It's our future that's there. We're going to expand from sea to sea, and this is a piece of that land in between. We already have the Louisiana Purchase up in this area of the map. This is just the next step in gaining more territory so we can see our destiny expand all the way to the ocean. Come prepared tomorrow to focus on our unit or our inquiry question. How does the Alamo illustrate difficult choices during the period of manifest destiny? What were some of the difficult choices of people moving to Texas, people in the United States? How does that impact life and society at this time? Have a good evening.